So hello everyone, welcome to the Mindfulness or Mindfulness Made Easy, very promising name, webinar today. My name is Mirna. I'll tell you a little bit more about what the plan is and what to expect today. But first of all, I just want to say thanks for joining and thanks for interest. I think it's such a wonderful topic to explore that I'm always really happy to see people exploring it. So what's going to happen today, I'm going to spend maybe 5 minutes giving you a bit of context into the topic, how it links to other things we are doing in terms of Happiness Academy, just to give you kind of a context there. Where is the topic coming from? Which angle are we seeing it from? And then we're going to spend a short time also on theory of mindfulness, but like 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes. And then we're going to spend most of the hour exploring many small, practical, diverse tools for practicing and exploring mindfulness. Some of them more like devoted practices, in a sense, focused practices, and some of them more of everyday activities you can experiment with and play. So somebody's background is quite noisy, so I'm gonna see to mute you, or maybe you can mute yourself. That would be even better. So yeah, so the control is on your side, and I don't prevent you from not talking. Thanks for that. Yeah, and let's then dive into the topic. As I said, very short intro to the topic itself and where it's coming from, and then short intro into the mindfulness, and then very practical side of it. So we are delivering this webinar as part of Happiness Academy. Happiness Academy is an initiative or a project where we do a lot of stuff related to positive psychology. I think most of you encountered it from somewhere as well, so you know more or less what we are doing. We're doing a lot of workshops, webinars, also creating educational materials, all with purpose of kind of diving into exploring positive psychology, spreading the knowledge and the practices of positive psychology. And if you're curious to explore more, you'll have the link here as well. I'll send you the slides. I want to dive into that topic a lot now. But I will tell you what we do so we can also clarify what to expect from the webinar today. So in terms of activities that we are delivering, we work with 3 types of activities. The one that's most in the core of Happiness Academy, it's workshops. And workshops we do as sort of experiential learning between 2 hours, 8 hours, even longer events sometimes. And we play with them with different ways of learning, with theories, exercises, discussions, reflection, sharing. But then we also do webinars like this one today, or webinars and talks, which are kind of more one-sided thing. So a lot of me talking, bear with me on that, and really focused on kind of bigger audience and on sharing content, on sharing ideas, on sharing knowledge, not as interactive, we will have a lot of exercises you'll have chance to try out, but we won't have a lot of discussions, how was that, and so on, just with the idea that we share a lot of different things, and we don't spend a lot of time on most of them. And then the third thing we normally do is also meetups. We do them in Zagreb, in Amsterdam, and virtually in our Facebook community, Positive Psychology Tribe. And the idea of meetup is really a lot of discussion and sharing. So on meetups, we don't do much content. We give it a light framework, and we really focus on discussion and sharing. So today you joined webinar, which means a lot of talking and ideas sharing. But these other options are also something that you might want to explore and join us for some of them, if that's kind of format that's better for you. Also today's topic, it fits into, and my PowerPoint just crashed. It's doing that the whole day, but don't worry, I know what's in it, so we can still go on, and I'll get it back. So today we're going to explore the topic of mindfulness, because within Happiness Academy, we work with a framework of 12 pillars, something we call 12 pillars of happiness. And within those 12 pillars, we define different topics that are strongly related to happiness. One of them is the topic of mindfulness, the first one. Throughout this year, we will be exploring all the other pillars as well. So if you're curious in others, stay tuned on Facebook and on newsletter. For example, next month, we will be exploring the topic of love within the pillar of positive emotions. And then every month, there will be a different free webinar, similar format to this, 1 hour, a lot of random kind of ideas and kind of content sharing. So today, we are kicking it off with the mindfulness. Still, as a bit of intro, I wanted to give you a very short overview of my background in mindfulness, so you know where the things I'm sharing are coming from in a way. Yeah, so just it's not kind of like without the context of it. So first of all, I'm a nerd with positive psychology. I love learning it. I love exploring it from theoretical, from scientific side. I also have a master's in it. I'm really dig deep into the topic. So a lot of knowledge comes from positive psychology research and from kind of evidence-based practices from that area. But I also explored it in practical ways. Mainly, or the biggest things maybe I was doing was going through mindfulness-based stress reduction, so MBSR program, which is worldwide program that's quite strong framework, quite well known, quite established in practices, and one that if you want to explore mindfulness in very structured and intense way, might be a good way to try it out. It's also very evidence-based in sense. It's also quite based on positive psychology. And I also did Vipassana, which is 10 days silent retreat, quite hardcore approach to mindfulness. I did it twice. It was very cool experience. If you're curious or thinking of doing it, do reach out. I'm happy to share ideas. So that's more the experiential side I was playing with. And then one thing that's maybe not a great thing to confess at the beginning of delivering topic of mindfulness, it's also one of my personal priorities in part of happiness and developing my happiness, because it's one of the most challenging things for me from all happiness related things, simply because I'm a huge overthinker and hugely focused on future. So that's kind of clashes with mindfulness sometimes. So for the last years, it's really a topic that's very close to me that I'm trying to get stronger in and develop a lot. So I'm experimenting a lot, learning a lot. So I'm very happy to share ideas and practices, not from the point of an expert in it or somebody who's really good at it, but really from the point of somebody who explored a lot and can share kind of different experiences. So that's a bit of a background. Yeah, if you want to learn more about any of these things or more where to explore more, find me. You'll have my email anyway, because if you signed up, you got an email, and or also in Positive Psychology Tribe, just like, yeah, chase me, ask me whatever you want. I'm always happy to talk about these topics. Last part of sort of introduction and content setting, I would like to share that this being a webinar and being fairly quick view of many, many topics, it's not really something you can consider a full proper training in mindfulness. You will not leave so rich in knowledge and enabled to be very mindful. You will leave with the very diverse, small tools, with a toolbox of new ideas that then it's only the initial point to start exploring for yourself. So that's just to manage expectations a little bit. No miracles in this hour, but definitely a lot of ideas where to start off or where to continue exploring it if you're exploring it for a while already. Having all that said, enough about Happiness Academy and about the context. Let's dive straight into the topic. So what is mindfulness? I will give you a couple of definitions, but really with the idea of why are we exploring it. I won't take more than 5 minutes on that, and then we're going to go on to more practical side of it. So this is one of most down-to-earth definitions I ever encountered, and it says, mindfulness is basically the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we are doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. This definition is from one of the articles on portal mindful.org, which is a really nice place to go read more ideas if you want to explore further. And I love it because it's so down to earth and practical. So they define it. It's really something that's in us already. That's our basic ability of our thinking to be present. And it has a lot to do with awareness and with not being overly reactive, sort of overly emotional, or overwhelmed by things in us and around us. We can define it in many, many other ways. I'll share a few more angles on that. But the nice point in this definition is mindfulness is something that we naturally possess. So it's part of us already. It's really human ability. But we can also strengthen it a lot. If we practice more, we can make it easier for us to retrieve it in a way and to use it if we practice it more. So in a way, it is something we are doing on everyday basis already. So whenever we bring our awareness into something we are experiencing, being it through our senses or through our thinking or emotions, whenever we notice and become aware of that, that's the moment we are being mindful. That means developing mindfulness in a way just means doing more of that, doing more, putting more awareness into our senses, into our thinking, into our emotions, or whatever we choose. As I told you, I'm a bit of a nerd. I'll throw in two more nerdy definitions and then we'll go to the practical side of it. One way we can also describe mindfulness is in this way. It means to be mindful means maintaining moment by moment awareness of our thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and surrounding environment. So what this really means is that anything we do where we put our awareness in any of these elements, thoughts, feelings, body sensations, and environments, in a way means we are practicing mindfulness. And one or more element that was missing in all of these definitions is the element of not overly attaching to things. And it's really well explained in this view of mindfulness, and that is mindfulness simply means being aware of what is happening right now without wishing it was different. So enjoying the pleasant without holding on to it when it changes, but also staying with the unpleasant without fearing it will always be like that, which normally it will not. So this one is really the core of attitude in mindfulness. This not being overly attached to our experience, not feeling like it's going to last forever. So being in the moment, but also not overly clinging and attaching to that moment. I hope you bared with me throughout of these definitions. I wanted to give you a bit of context there of different ways we can see mindfulness. I will send you those definitions and slides anyway. And I would like us to close this theoretical part with two small points of why do we want to explore mindfulness. Yeah, it sounds difficult and sounds really nice, but why would you bother in a way? Part of it comes down to the scientific side of positive psychology, in which, and I won't dive deep into this, but just leave it as a point, in which we actually have a lot of research and studies in positive psychology that show that mindfulness really positively impacts our brain. Things such as that gray matter is more persistent living as we are aging. So we stay with more gray matter in the brain comparing to people who don't practice mindfulness. So that's one of the examples. The other one is just more calm patterns of emotional reactivity in the brain are related to practice of mindfulness. So there is a lot of studies and evidence on the scientific side that mindfulness actually makes like physiologically better brain in a way, which is a nice point. But then the other part is really much more related on the side of what we are doing at the Happiness Academy, and it's related to happiness. If we want to work on our happiness, if we want to work on being happier, being more content, it really is related to actually being in the moment and being present, because it's very hard to have a lot of positive emotion and to experience happiness if we are somewhere in the abstract world of mind. So in that sense, down to earth side is also quite important. So that's it from sort of a theoretical framework or the background of the topic we are dealing with today. And yeah, it's time to dive into practical exercises. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through quite short exercises. I will guide you through some, and I will also give you ideas on how you could twist them and play with them and use them maybe in a more complex way or just in a little bit different way. But before we dive into specific exercise, I also wanted to give you a little bit of view, how can this exercise look and how can they be different? And we can here again go very broad. I went very short just to give you a couple of ideas. We can practice mindfulness in everyday life. So we can practice it through everyday activities. We'll talk a lot about these kind of practices as well. Or we can practice it in dedicated practices, such as meditation. Everybody probably is familiar with as a concept, but also many other practices where we really take the time to practice and to kind of develop more mindfulness. But then we can also practice it in different ways from perspective. Are we practicing in mindfulness, training our mind for focused state and kind of becoming more aware of our mind, becoming more guiding it on purpose, keeping our attention in one place? Or we could train it for such so-called open awareness, meaning to notice more around us, to be more tuned into our own state and also in our environment or in our senses. So kind of be more with observer mind of things that we are experiencing versus being narrowly focused on one specific thing. So they seem a bit opposed, and they are. And that's why it's interesting that mindfulness has so many angles. And we can also practice mindfulness through more observing mind. So kind of like cultivating awareness, cultivating ability to notice things and to become more aware of things. Or we can go more on the side of trying to cultivate something through practice of mindfulness. Maybe cultivating feeling of love or compassion or self-compassion or different ways of relaxing, peace, letting go in some way. So within the practices we will explore, we will play a little bit with all of this. I would just wanted to outline them here for you to give you ideas which of these could be more or less interesting for you and which are the ones you might want to explore. Having that said, the point is not to practice all of them. The point is to practice something that's most relevant for you, depending on the objective you would like to achieve through your mindfulness practice. Is it to be more present? Is it to be more focused? Is it to have more relaxation or positive emotion? There can be many, many goals. And also according to what fits you best in style. So I would invite you with the practices we will do today and with exercises we will do today to have an open mind towards them and think about them a little bit, try them out, play with them. But then if you don't like them, then leave them. When we finish the call, choose one or two you like best and you find most interesting and you're most curious about, and then take that one and play with that one in your life. Don't force yourself to, explore something that's not appealing or that's not interesting. Having that said, let's get practical, finally. So first, I'll invite you for one very, very short practice, and that is to take literally a minute and to check in, how does your body feel right now? Not in any structured way, but just literally checking, how is my body feeling right now? Is there any tension anywhere? Like, is there any, I don't know, maybe lack of breath because I was speaking quite fast now. It could be that you're like, okay. Or maybe there is some tension from sitting or standing or the way you lean somewhere. Or what is it in your body? Is it heavy or is it light? So I'm going to give you just like 30 seconds of silence to question that a little bit. And then we'll do an exercise, then we'll question that again. And feel free to share. I didn't have a chat since my PowerPoint crashed, but I'm taking it back now. So if you want, you can also comment in chat, like, what did you notice? How does it feel? And yeah, what can you notice about your body? If you feel like, you can also take a big breath. Cool. And then we're going to do a small exercise, which is, to be honest, one of my favorites. And it's very, very simple. It's called box breathing. And box breathing basically is one of the exercises of breathing. It takes a couple of minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, and it has 4 steps. I'll explain it first, then we'll do it together. So first of all, you take an inhale, and we'll work here with 4 seconds. You can do longer period, you can do shorter period. Then after you inhale, for the same period of time, we will hold our breath. So in this case, 4 seconds. Then we will exhale for 4 seconds. And then we will hold again on empty lungs, just like not breathing for 4 seconds. And then we'll do that cycle. We'll do it 8 times now. We usually do it maybe 10, but yeah, I'll tell you more about it after. Let's try and do it a couple of times. So I'll be guiding it, and you don't stress if you immediately don't sink into that rhythm. Just plug in as we go in the second or third breath. So we're starting with a big, nice inhale, and I'll be counting. So inhale, and 2, 3, 4. And then you'll just hold your breath for 2, 3, 4. And then you can slowly exhale. again for 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to hold on empty lungs, the toughest part, for 2, 3, 4. And then we go again. Inhale, 1, 3, 4, and hold it for 2, 3, 4. And then exhale for 2, 3, 4, and hold it for 2, 3, 4, and inhale again for 2, 3, 4, and hold your breath for 2, 3, 4. Exhale again for 2, 3, 4, and hold it for 2, 3, 4. Then inhale for 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 2, 3, 4. And hold it for 2, 3, 4. And inhale. We are halfway there for 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 2, 3, 4. And hold it for 2, 3, 4. Then inhale for 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 2, 3, 4. And inhale for 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 2, 3, 4. And hold it for 2, 3, 4. And the last one, inhale for 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for 2, 3, 4. And do continue breathing, although we are done with the cycle of the exercise, yeah? So it could be, it was kind of stressful for you, my guidance around it. So it's much better to do this or on your own counting or with some sort of a clock or an app. There is a nice app. It's not free, but it's very cheap. It's called box breathing. But what I would like us to do now after this exercise is to do one more check-in with your body and just notice if anything changed. It didn't have to change and you're not looking or forcing it to change. You're just noticing. Is there something different? Do you feel more breath, more relaxed in some way different? Please feel free to also share in chat. We're not going to be discussing it because we want to cover so many things. But if you share in chat, I think other people will appreciate it and kind of like to get some ideas and experiences from others as well. And also if there is some burning question, then I'm happy to have it in chat as well, not to leave you at any discomfort. So the idea, this is one of many breathing exercises. So breathing exercises we can do in many, many variations for different reasons and different outcomes. This is probably one that's most balanced in a way. Many exercises with breathing we have are the ones where we try to take a lot of oxygen in. So we do very deep breaths in or very fast types of breathing in, that's when we want to get kind of pumped with energy in a way and guide our energy in that way. But we can also do many exercises which are a bit disbalanced, where we breathe out a lot, where we have longer exhale than the inhale. And those are usually exercises that are much more on the relaxing side. So the longer the exhale, the more relaxing the exercise is. The box breathing is fairly balanced, and it's quite related to, it does allow a bit of relaxation as well. But the main sort of side effect is usually feeling a bit more composed, feeling a bit more in some way in control, like our brain is a bit more balanced in a way, and we feel a bit more of that control because we are working with controlling our breath for a little while. It's interesting that some of you are mentioning being sleepy in the chat. Some of you are more on the side, brain connected, more present and so on. I think it's a bit individual as well, and all of these exercises are. And I think with the breathing one, for me, this is one of the really nice ones because it works for me personally really well. But I think in breathing one, you also want to explore which ones works the best for you. This could be one to explore. There are many more. But I think the best thing with it is to remember this took us like 4 minutes or something, maybe even less, 3.5. And I think the key with breathing exercises is we'd like to pretend they're very complicated, and then we forget to do them, or we don't dedicate the time to practice. But it's actually as simple as 1 minute and 4 breaths can be a good breathing exercise. So really the key with breathing exercises is to make them very simple and to use them often, like versus making them very complicated and kind of like then not do them because there is never time and so on. Having that said, with any sort of mindfulness exercise, it's really nice to do this body check-in thing we did at the beginning, which is literally 10 seconds or half a minute. Check it. I'm purposefully calling it check-in and not body scan. We'll go to body scan a bit as well, because body scan is when you go very thoroughly. You can go fast or slow, but you go kind of thoroughly. You check all the different parts of your body. How do they feel? Body check-in, it's much more like, 10 seconds. Hey, what's up, body? What's on top of your mind, body? What feels most tense or whatever, painful or great or anything else? So body scan we want to do as well, often, because it gets us more tuned into our body, but it does require a bit more focus. Body check-in, you want to do like every few hours and after every activity, just to kind of to have this quick conversation with your body and to feel more connected in that way. Having that said, we will do a short body scan as well now to kind of explore that practice as well. And then I'll give you quite more ideas of how you can play with body scan to make it a bit different. But let's do it for now, just a simple version and quite short version. Will take like 5 minutes. Normally you could do this up to an hour. Be very thorough with everything you feel in your body. But today we want to just touch on different practices. So we'll do it fairly quick. And we'll start with your feet. And I'll ask you to just notice what's going on in your feet and just take a couple of seconds with them. Like kind of like an observer. You observe what is happening in your feet. And you can notice, how do your feet feel? You can notice maybe the temperature in them. You can notice if there is any tension, if there is any pain, if there is any positive emotion, what is going on. Do your feet feel tight in a way, or do they feel relaxed? Yeah, and what is maybe the contact between your feet and maybe your socks or the floor or the chair or anything else? So we're going to go in the same way through all the other body parts, kind of scanning the body quickly. So we're going to touch on the ankles now and just check in. Hey, how do my ankles feel? What's going on there? Tense or relaxed? Cold or warm? Maybe touching anything, maybe not. Am I even aware of my ankles? Where are my ankles? In a way. And then we're going to move up from there. We're going to move to our calves and just notice what is going on in our calf muscle. Are they tense? Are they in any pain? Are they relaxed? Do we feel them? Are we connected with them? Cold or warm? Just a quick checkup. What's up in the calves? And then we go to our knees. What's going on in our knees? Are they cracky, no, squeaky, or are they relaxed? Tense maybe? Again, cold, warm? Are they touching anything else? Where are our knees? How do they feel? And then we're going to move up to our thighs and just feel, how is the feeling in my thigh? Is it warm, cold? Again, tense? Does it have a contact with my clothes or maybe with the chair? Also to our gluteus, how does that feel? Is there any pain? Is there any warmth? Today, if you want, you can also follow that with your hand and actually touch lightly the body part you're examining. Normally you wouldn't do that, but sometimes, especially if you don't feel a lot in some body part, you might want to connect in that physical way as well. So then we go to our tummy and we're just saying, how does my tummy feel? Is there anything going on there? Is it tense? Is it relaxed? Cold, warm, hungry? Is there anything else going on there? What is in my tummy? And then we go to our back. First our lower back, then our upper back. And we just check in. Hey, what's going on in our back? Are they tense? Is there any pain? Are they crouched in some way? And remember, in this exercise, we're not looking to change anything, although it's possible it changes the moment we become aware, but that's not our aim. Our aim is to connect, to become more aware, to notice, to observe. Then we go, okay, let's check our chest as well. What is going on in our chest? Is there any tension? If you want, you can connect again with your hand. You don't need to if you don't feel it's necessary. You're checking for tightness, relaxation, warmth, any feeling, anything that's happening in your chest area. Then we're going to check quickly our arms as well. So starting from our palms or fists, just checking what is happening in my fingers and in my fists. Is there any feeling there? Any tension? Do they feel warm, cold? Any pain maybe? Am I touching something with them? How does that feel? And then we'll move to our lower arm, part of the arm, so up to our elbows, and check in with that part. What is happening there? What do we have in this part of our arm? And again, tight, relaxed, cold, warm, anything else? And then we move to our upper arms and shoulders. And we are noticing here, do we have any tension in that part? Do we feel like we need to connect and check them out a bit? Are they in some way warm, cold, tight, relaxed? And then we go to our neck and we do the same. Try to notice, is it tight or relaxed, cold, warm, pain? So what you really want to do in this exercise is also, if you don't notice anything, you just stay with it a little bit. You stay for a minute and it's like, what's going on in my neck? I have no idea. That's fine. Let me observe it a little bit more. Is there anything I can notice? I'm gentle with my neck. I'm gentle with the exercise. I'm gentle with myself. I'm not chasing myself to find what's going on there. No, I'm like, hey, what is there? Is there anything? Maybe a bit of curiosity. Just observing, just noticing. Not fixing, not judging, just noticing. And then I go to my jaw. That tends to be a very tense area, so let's check that. Is there anything in my jaw that's tense? Or maybe anything in my jaw that feels in some way cold, warm, painful, unusual? What can I notice in my jaw? And then we're going to move up to the area around our eyes, and we're going to try to feel that. What is happening in my head? Not in your thoughts though, just in my head physically. Is there any tension, any pain, anything I feel I should do with it, anything I'm noticing? Just observing gently, just curiously noticing what's there. And then the last step, we're going to check the top of our head. If you can feel something there, if not, you're going to just observe it a little bit. Try to notice what is happening there. How does my hair feel on my head in a way? What is the contact between my hair and my head? Do I feel cold or warm here? Do I feel any sensation? Or is it just empty? If it's just empty, that's fine as well. Just stay with it for a few seconds. Notice it. Yeah, see what's there. Then in the end, you can just take a nice deep breath. In case you stopped breathing. No. And please feel free to share in chat, how was that? While I'll comment with a few more ideas and variations you could be doing with this exercise. So the idea of body scan is really, first of all, to for a while be focused on your body and nothing else. So we're kind of practicing that focus. But it's also to become more connected and more aware of our body, something that we don't do enough lately in the kind of modern world. So the idea is really, you can do body scan for, I think now we did it probably for like 5 minutes. I wasn't exactly measuring it, but something like that. But you could also do it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. You could go very thorough. You could check smaller body parts, not as big as we took. You could stay longer with each of them. What matters, however, is not to be in state of, inquisition and frustration and chasing for what do you feel, but to be really light and gentle with it, to be kind of like exploration. Hey, what is there? What can I find? Kind of in that sense. I see one comment that says more relaxed and connected with the body. Yeah, that's good. That's exactly what we kind of want to get, although we don't want to be attached to that outcome, but we want to kind of more explore it. So obviously this is a practice that the more you would practice, the easier it would get, and the more you would find and faster you would find. We could also do a really nice variation of it, which is called progressive muscle relaxation. It's one of the stress release techniques. And it goes the same as body scan. You're doing the same things. You're following the same steps, the same body parts from the feet all the way up. But every part of the body, instead of questioning what's going on there, you try to tighten a lot, strongly, and then you're trying to relax it straight away. The thinking behind it is that before you tighten the muscle, often you're not as connected to it. And even when you think it's relaxed, it's not really fully relaxed. So tightening it strongly and then relaxing it gives us much more control and connection with that muscle, and it relaxes more. So it's a really nice variation. We won't try it now for sake of time, but I would definitely recommend to try it like in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, to do the same steps, but then to try kind of tighten each muscle, relax each muscle. So I'm going to answer quickly the question in chat, although we're not going to go into questions in general because it's going to totally destroy our time for this hour. It helps because body scan helps because it develops more awareness of what's happening in our body. The problem is if you start fixing it too fast, then you're fixing the symptoms, but you don't really connect to what is happening. So what you really want to develop is, first of all, mindfulness is attitude of non-judgment in a way. So you want to also explore that, but you also want to show to your body you're listening to it in a way before you would ever go fixing something. It's kind of like talking to a good friend, and then instead of rushing in with the advice before they finish describing what's bothering them, you want to listen to them first to understand them really well. So you're kind of doing the same with your body. You're saying, hey, for a change, I'm listening. No, I'm not going to tell you what to fix. Maybe I tell you tomorrow, but now I'm not going to tell you. I'm really listening what is happening there. That was like the shortest answer ever. I would love to diverge in it, but yeah, we're going to move on with other exercises as well. Okay, cool. So other than kind of tuning into our body in sense of how does our body feel and what is going on, a really nice way of becoming more mindful is through exploring our own senses. So I'm going to share one exercise here that's 5 minutes long, and it's crazy simple. We're not going to do it now, but I just wanted to share it with you also to try it out if you want to. And then I'll give you a few more tweaks and versions of how we can play with that. And that exercise is to observe a leaf for 5 minutes, which now seems like short time, but when you actually do it, they might seem as a much, much longer time. And the whole idea is really just to pick up a leaf. Can be a live leaf on a plant, or it can be anything on the ground, and just really give your attention to that leaf and just kind of notice the shades of it, notice the colors, notice the textures, notice everything that's going on that leaf, the patterns, trying to kind of just having the mindset of, hey, I'm seeing leaf for the first time in my life. What is that? What is going on here? And just kind of observing it. The purpose of that exercise is partially to build more focus and awareness, in sense just practicing to keep your focus in one thing, opposite from ever-present multitasking. but it is also just to kind of get grounded in that moment, because after that moment you will also feel a bit more slow, a bit more grounded, a bit more balanced. Plus you will practice the muscle of focus and attention in a long term, in a way. So it's probably one of the simplest mindfulness exercises, and you can really play with it in many variations, because any way of interacting and putting more awareness in our senses and sensations we can explore with our senses is kind of the quickest shortcut to mindfulness. It takes least effort comparing to other techniques. One way could be to really just touching our own arm with the other arm in a really light and slow way, kind of like touching with the feather. Now with all the winter clothes I have, it's kind of hard to show, but the idea here would be to just like really literally take a minute and just kind of like touching your other arm with one arm and just noticing in both sides, in both arms, how does that feel? What is happening? And the more you get tuned into focus and awareness and senses, the lighter you can go on that touch, and the more kind of fine-tuned your senses become, but also your focus, because then you get very focused in what you're trying to explore. So the key for exploring anything with the own senses is curiosity, and not looking for, not judging if that's good or bad, or if you like it or not, but just exploring it. Another way could be touching a plant or a rock. We were playing with a leaf here, but you could play with the whole tree and kind of just spend a minute, touching a tree or a rock and just trying to explore the texture, the temperature, the sense of touch. How does that feel? You could like play with many other elements, also like just a desk or metal or anything else, a plate, anything you put your hands on. You could apply the same thinking in mindful walk. There is a lot of variations of mindful walk exercise, but one of really simple ones is to just going for a short walk and just trying to notice everything you can in your environment and in your body. So kind of like while you're walking and chilling and relaxing, just noticing, hey, what is around me? What can I find in my environment? What do I feel in my body? And just kind of shifting our focus between these things. Then another great one, and this one can work really well in combination with body scan. It's mindful shower. So it's just while taking a shower, noticing more how does that feel on different parts of our skin and different parts of our body. And you can really combine it also with sort of a body scan. Yeah, experiment. Let me know how that went. No, I think it's a really nice way because it has more direct contact that helps us to be more aware of body part. And then it's also mindful eating, really popular topic in mindfulness, kind of like just approaching our food and our taste buds more mindfully. And that's a wonderful one. And I think most of people are aware of mindful eating as such, but they often don't implement it because we don't have time. Because to have a mindful lunch, it takes like 2 hours or something. Then the interesting, really quick hack is to just try to do first bite of every meal in a more mindful way. So literally just to slow down the moment when we start eating and to really enjoy and explore and be mindful about that very first bite, and then just to continue the meal as normal. That takes very short time, and it really kind of brings us, it's also more fun than just eating lunch fast, but it also kind of brings us to be more tuned into that. And then one, if you want to challenge yourself a little bit more comparing to food, is mindful water drinking. And that's about just taking the glass of water and just like drinking it in a way where you feel really the texture, the temperature, maybe the nuance of a flavor, depends on how plain it is. But then also, how does that water feel in your body? Is there any change? Do you feel maybe the temperature of cold or warm water coming down your throat? Yeah, again, I won't go into details, but the idea is really just mindset of curiosity, even when we drink water. I think usually this one happens after you get really, really thirsty. Then we are tuned into it, but normally we kind of neglect it a little bit. And then the last one is observing the clouds. That's one that's really in everyday life, something that also it's well known as a practice, and when you have a really lazy day, then we do it usually. But when we have everyday rushed day, then we kind of neglect it. But just noticing the sky and passing of clouds can really also ground us in a way. I love the comment in chat about combining cold shower with a mindful shower. No, yeah, that's definitely interesting experiment, especially in February. Cool. And then the last one with tone senses could be also more related to auditory sense. One option could be to listening, just taking one short song and then just listening it with full mindfulness, with full attention. Or becoming more aware of sounds around us. So just tuning into sounds for a minute and noticing more of background sounds than we normally would. So these are just the ideas to kind of explore more in everyday life. And we will do a short exercise related to it now that's called 5 senses to kind of try out all of them together now in a way. And 5 senses goes like this. First, we try to notice 5 things around us that you can see. And just notice them and name them. Like I can see a glass of water, I can see my laptop, I can see people on the camera and so on. Do your thing. I'm just giving you an example. So notice 5 things around you that you can see visually. And then notice 4 things that you can feel. And that can be by sense or by emotion. Like what do I feel? Right now, how do I feel? 4 things. Just name them, notice them, and then move on to 3 things that you can hear. And it's easy to hear my voice all the time, but the challenge here is to hear more, to hear something in your environment, maybe distant train, which is the case for me right now, or maybe wind somewhere, or I'll shut up just for 10 seconds to give you a chance to hear something else. And then after that, notice 2 things you can smell. Try to notice them where you are. Like what is the smell? Maybe it's just smell of fresh air, which is fine as well, or non-fresh air. But if you can't find 2 things, you can also find something to smell around you, even your hand if nothing else. No. But I like how everybody's doing that. Okay, cool. That's good to see you're still with me. Yeah, but it's even better if you can notice something you can smell without looking for it. But that's also a bit of a, I guess, practice and depends on the context. And then notice one thing you can taste. And it's the same thing. You can really go, hey, what is the taste in my mouth right now? Or you can go cheating like me right now. Nice water. No. So this exercise is really kind of to touch on all senses and ground us a little bit. In my mind, exploring one sense can be more powerful because we kind of get more tuned into it. But it is interesting in this exercise to discover which senses are difficult for you. And then maybe go explore those more in general. Or maybe which are really nice and you love them and they're enjoyable, but you neglect them. Those are interesting one kind of to notice and then maybe do more other exercises with them. Now, to touch on 2 very interesting things that are very challenging when it comes down to mindfulness, it's pain and pleasure. So pain is one of the senses or sensations that is very interesting to explore in a mindful way, because if you remember the quote from the beginning about letting go things and not getting attached to them, pain is really hard not to get tangled in our mind. And in Buddhism, there was even this quote, really nice one, which says, every pain is being like shot with 2 arrows. First arrow is the physical pain that actually hits us in some way. And the second arrow is our mind ruminating on the first one, yeah? And often second one is worse than the first one. I wouldn't say always, but often. So the interesting thing with pain is it's really hard kind of to move away from it. We get very entangled. We want to escape it, or we hate it, or we have this usually intense relationship with pain, or we want to deny it or something like that. So interesting approach in mindfulness with pain is exploring it, noticing it, exploring it, being curious about it, and just going like, hey, how does pain feel like? Oh, I have pain here. What does that feel like? What is pain? What is going on here? How do I know it's a pain? You know, kind of like being just very curious about it. And that gives us a bit of space from it, which is really nice. it is also a very hard thing to do. And it usually becomes easier as you do more of other mindfulness practices. But I just wanted to throw it in there as an idea to explore, and maybe as one of the goals for mindfulness practices as well, to kind of play in that area as well. Pleasure is a bit of the opposite. With pleasure, we have this issue of liking it too much and getting attached to it in a way. And mindfulness relation with pleasure, it has two sides. One is, by being more mindful, sometimes we can get more pleasure out of things. Thinking, for example, of mindful food. But also, we can learn to be less attached to pleasure, which in a moment doesn't feel like a big thing, but when you finish or lose that pleasure, then it becomes quite a good thing to stay balanced in your mind. So the idea of relationship, mindfulness, and pleasure is two sides. One is it leads to more of it in a way, but it also leads to a lighter attachment to that pleasure in a way. So that's two sides that are really interesting to explore. I didn't want us to explore these topics to depth because they're quite big, complex, and challenging, but I did want to throw them in there exactly to raise the bar a bit. Yeah, be mindful with shower. That's easy. Try being mindful with something you love or something that's a pain. That's kind of next level in a way. Related to pleasure and pain, it's also the idea of what are the components or elements of mindfulness, which I wanted to throw in here just a little bit so we work a bit with mindset as well. So when we talk about mindfulness, we often mention two components and we kind of neglect the third one, which is why I wanted us to kind of touch on them now. First, most commonly talked about component of mindfulness is component of attention. Mindfulness is about guiding and directing your attention, right? Focusing, choosing where your attention goes. But then it's also related to intention. And that's the one that often is way too neglected. An intention of mindfulness is really to notice things in gentle way, in accepting way, in compassionate way, in a kind way. And that's one that even in practice of mindfulness, often we get a bit, we go away from it a bit. Like in body scan, we want to fix things. And the problem with that is that it goes with harshness. Versus if we stay mindful, that means we're staying with more like, oh, that feels not great, but that's okay. And, you know, kind of we go much more kind. And then the third component is related to this attitude of being in the mindset of observer versus a mindset of somebody who is part of the experience. And that gives us a bit of space from overly emotional experiences, from attaching to experiences and so on. I'm not going to go deeper exploring these topics. Although, as I told you, we could talk about this topic. We're covering it for an hour. We could talk about it for a week. But my goal was really to give you many new ideas and new directions and then leave you to explore them and practice them in the direction in which you wish. So let's do one more small practice that's really nice and really easy. And that's, let's call it root and the universe. So what we're going to do is, we're going to imagine that from our feet, there are this, visually, we're going to imagine the roots that are going down and connecting us to the earth. And that on top of our head, there is light that's projecting into the universe and that's connecting us to universe and everything around us. And we're going to do only 3 breaths in which we're going to breathe in really deep while imagining we're pulling in beautiful, positive, golden energy out of earth. So like, just imagining that through these roots, earth is giving us beautiful, positive, light, golden energy. And then we're going to breathe out, imagining that we're releasing that energy through our body towards the universe, like on top of our head, just like letting it go somewhere in the air. And we're going to do that just 3 times. So again, just breathing in, taking the beautiful energy out of earth. And then with breathing out, just releasing it, letting it go out of our shoulders, head up into the space, into the universe. And we'll do it the 3rd time. Just picking up from the earth, taking the energy into our body, leading it to our body. You can imagine through your spine or to your body, all the way up to your head, and then with breathing out, just letting it go and releasing it in a way. So this is also one you could be doing for a bit longer. It would be much better to be doing it for a bit longer, maybe 10 breaths. You could be playing with it a lot. In sense, you could change the color of energy to something that fits you better. You could play it just not with roots and universe, but more with breathing in light and positivity and breathing out anything negative, or maybe breathing out like the dark energy or something like that. So you could play with this a lot. But the point is that this kind of visualization and feeling of connection, it gives us a bit more feeling of kind of being grounded, but also more space, because feeling physically connected to earth makes us feel stable. And then feeling open and letting go gives us more air, more space in a way. And again, very welcome to share with others in chat how you like, what is your experience with this one? Did you like it? What would you change about it? And so on. So we are coming to sort of a final quick list of ideas and practices to explore in everyday life. And then we're going to close off with one big and important point about mindset in mindfulness, and then with some ideas of how you could be exploring that further. So I think we're going to be maybe 5 minutes behind the schedule, but we're still quite close to kind of finishing off the topic. So in terms of everyday quick practices, I just wanted to share also a few more ideas of how you could be experimenting with mindfulness in everyday activities. So if you remember the ones where we talk about senses, they were still a little bit bigger maybe, like shower, not always handy, no, not always convenient to try out. But there are also many very quick things we can experiment with. One is just every time we wash our hands, to remember to be more mindful and to notice more the feeling of water on the hands, the feeling of soap on the hands. Be careful, it might lead to 5-minute long hand washings. But other than that, it's really nice practice to get grounded really fast. Yeah, it might lead also to washing your hands every hour. So careful with OCD tendencies. Then another one is to try, I call it smelling flowers here, but it's really about when we notice something we like in our environment, anything, a color we like, the view we like, a person we like, a flower we like, to take few seconds to slow down and mindfully pay attention to it, just for like 10 seconds or half a minute, to notice a bit more about this thing, maybe smell it, maybe touch it, maybe it depends what's appropriate in the moment, maybe touch it, maybe like notice some details of it, experience it in some way. So just kind of while walking through the day, trying to remember, hey, let me notice a bit more today. And then again, first bite of food, mentioned already, but so important, also on side of fun and pleasure, that I kind of wanted to underline it. Really nice practice that for somebody is easy and for somebody can be quite advanced and difficult is noticing our heartbeat. It's easy after sports, it's like 200, and it's easy if you do, like if you find the, the points on the hand or on the neck to notice it, and that's a good start. It can be hard to do it without, but it's wonderful practice to do also if you're doing breathing practices. Then to try also to notice your heartbeat within that practice, especially as you're getting more fine-tuned in it. It's really nice. It really has strong feeling of connection and grounding in your body if you manage to do that. Just again, if it's challenging, don't be like, oh my God, I can't do it. What's up with this? She said I should do it or whatever. Just like play with it. Be curious. Try to find it and notice it. And then the last one is related to mindfulness in connections. That's one topic we really did not explore today at all. But I just wanted to bring it in there to bring in a bit more awareness. It's also about how mindful we can be in connection with others. And nice conversations with friends are a great context for that. So this kind of mindfulness in conversations, paying attention to conversations, it's also something that we can consciously, when we're going to meet someone, say, hey, today in this conversation, this interaction, I will be a little bit more, a little bit more mindful. Like Christoph is saying in chat, active listening, like boosting up the active listening. Yes, definitely. And playing with that a little bit more. Cool. So these were all like ton of tools and exercises I throw in at you, literally like shaking out the toolbox ahead of you. So now it's up to you to do something with them and find the one you like. I will invite you to do that in a minute as well. But before we move to sort of like a closing and action time, I still wanted to touch on one topic. And that one is really about how you practice mindfulness in terms of mindset and attitude. There is beautiful metaphor that says that one of the best ways to practice mindfulness is to train your brain like you would train a puppy. And by that we mean not to shout at it, chase it around, and kind of be very harsh and mean with it, because then puppy just gets scared and it does not listen to you at all, but instead to be very gentle and consistent with it. Meaning, if you would have a puppy and you would want it to stay in one place, on its cushion or its corner, you would put it there, and when the puppy would go away, if you would shout at it to go back and not to listen to you, then the puppy would just be like, nothing would happen and it would look very miserable, which you wouldn't want. Instead, if you would gently bring that puppy back to its place, leave it there, maybe pet it a bit, and then do that every time it goes away, after a while, puppy would figure out, even with its puppy brain, that that's the spot where it should stay. And it's similar with the brain. Every time you send it to look for something like, how does my body feel? What can I find that's beautiful in my environment? How can I feel a little bit more present in this moment? Every time you keep on doing that, if you get frustrated and you go like, oh, I didn't do it well, my attention drifted or whatever, you're just practicing to be harsh with yourself, which is not a great practice. But every time that instead you say, oh, let's look at this again in a gentle and friendly way, and every time you're patient and consistent, that's when you're really training your brain to keep on going there in a way. So if there is one thing you take away with all the list of exercises and practicing that you take away to really try to implement more, that's probably the one. Be gentle with your brain. Be consistent and firm maybe, but gentle, because that's really the key. Otherwise, if you're practicing harshness, that's what you're going to get better at, which is not a great skill to get better at in communication with ourselves. Cool. So maybe a thought to take away in a way, it's really that mindfulness, it's so much about everyday small things and about small habits. Yeah, you can practice mindfulness by doing an hour of meditation in the morning, hour of meditation in the evening. That's very hard. It's not likely we're going to all find time for that. It requires a lot of discipline and a lot of time. It's even question, am I ready to invest that much time in it? Is it worth it for me? However, bringing in those small moments, like doing one day, 3 minutes breathing in the morning, nice mindful shower, and being mindful in conversation, it's beautiful practices that really enrich our life. They still practice mindfulness and present and actually still work with our brain in a positive way, but they're much more easy and more pleasurable in a way. And they still have the result as long as we are consistent in them. So you want to make it small, but you want to make it consistent. That's really key with mindfulness in a way. If you want a help of technology, there is a lot of apps out there, a lot of good ones. The one I like to recommend most is this one, Insight Timer, because it's free and it's not structured according to one teacher or one school, but instead it's a platform that has many different teachers uploading their meditations there, and also has options like timers and different background music and bells and stuff like that. So it's super nice. I would really recommend it as a good place to look for resources related to mindfulness. And it has exercises like mindful walk, body scan, many things we were mentioning in a way. So this was more or less the topic for us to cover today, a bit over time, sorry for that, but as you notice, I'm trying to squeezing a lot of tools in a very short hour. So I'm going to just very quickly go through the list of things we were mentioning, and I will invite you to pick one thing or maybe two from the list you like and you would like to focus on for the next week to implement a little bit more. So sort of an action point for yourself. One of these things or any other thing that's mindfulness related, as long as you decide to practice something. So one is body check-in. So just to more often do that check-in. Hey, how does my body feel now? or hey body, what's up? Depends how you talk to your body. So kind of like just quickly checking in your body. The other one could be any breathing exercise. One we did was box breathing, which is like 4 sides, breathing in, holding, out, and holding, always for the same duration of time. Ideally done in 10 breaths, and ideally done with the length that's slightly challenging for you, which usually at the beginning will be like 5 or 6 seconds. We did it with 4, which was quite safe. So you want to raise that challenge a little bit to get more attention into it. Then also body scan, again, checking our body, but in a much more thorough way, muscle by muscle or area by area. Could do it very short, could do it very fast, or could do it with the variation of progressive muscle relaxation, which is more related to tightening every muscle and then releasing it before not just noticing, but actually actively guiding it. And I just noticed in chat now, somehow I missed Sylvia's comment, how about noticing your first thought when you wake up? I think that's also wonderful practice, wonderful idea. Maybe somebody wants to take it away. For me, to be honest, it would be very hard to remember to do it every day. No, but I think depends what you want to achieve and how you want to explore. Then we also had different ideas on how to explore senses, starting from the leaf exercise, going very detailed on observing the leaf, maybe touching the leaf, or anything else in our environment, from shower to food, to people, to rocks or plants or animals. Pets are such a good area to be mindful. And also you could also explore it more in structured exercise like we did with 5 senses, which is like 5 things I see, 4 things I feel, 3 things I hear, 2 things I smell, and 1 thing I taste, right? So kind of playing with that structure. That's a nice structured way of exploring the same. Then we talked also a little bit about pain and pleasure. That's more like if you feel like you have a lot of one of these in your life, then that would be a good area to explore. Although I would consider it a bit advanced practice. So it depends where you are with things. But that would be also one area where mindfulness is so important with pain and pleasure. Then we did the exercise with the roots and universe. So kind of like just breathing, but also visualizing, being connected with something firm below us and something open and light above us. And as I said, you could vary it in a lot of ways. And then we also talked about just many everyday things we can take as doing mini practices in some way, from washing your hands to more mindful conversations to just many different things. So I wanted to leave you with one hack that's really, if you feel like you want more mindfulness, but sometimes it's complicated, then this is really the hack to use to get it in the fastest way. And that's curiosity. Whenever you want to be more mindful, instead of saying, be more mindful now, brain, or your name, or however you talk to yourself, you could just go like, hey, what is interesting today? Or how can I be curious in this situation? What can I explore? That's something that really puts us in mindful state very fast if we kind of go with that question. So if you want to cheat and skip all the exercises we talked about, this is the question to take away. Well, I hope that today we managed to plant some seeds and ideas of things you could explore with mindfulness. Please do feel very welcome to also join in other conversations, being it in Positive Psychology Tribe, to share some practices you're doing. So that's our Facebook group, to share some practices and ideas that you're doing, and just kind of like share it with the community a bit. You know, do something with this. It's cool to get new ideas, but they only work if you kind of play with them more. And yeah, I hope you chose one to experiment. I will ask you in a minute to also share in chat if you would like to. So if you did decide for one thing you want to explore further or you want to practice, I would invite you now to share it in chat. Also to show to others you will be working hard as well, so maybe they get motivated too. But also to share ideas for actions and for you to have a bit of a focus. Where is it that you're going with this? What would you like to explore next? Because the toughest thing is when we throw in 20 tools, then it's very big confusion about which one do I start from. So please choose one. Please write in chat which one you chose. And in the meantime, I'm going to just tell you very quickly what other places you can look for more on this topic. And there are actually 3, although I wrote here 2. One is the newsletter. We will be sending more ideas with time and quotes and stuff related to positive psychology and mindfulness on the newsletter. So if you're not there, I know most of people is, but if you're not, feel free to join. And I would very much invite you to Facebook group, to Positive Psychology Tribe, and invite you not just to join, but to talk about these things there. Because now we had a very one-sided interaction here, and I throw in a lot of ideas at you, but it's also really about the community and conversation. So in the group, we'll be writing about it, but we will also have next meetup somewhere in the second half of March with the Positive Psychology Tribe, which is just for that group, which will be called with discussion and sharing, focused on mindfulness practices. So maybe that's one to join if you want to explore it from more kind of discussion and sharing way and ideas from other people. So you have my email and you will have it. You're very welcome to reach out, but it's even better if you reach out in Facebook group and talk to everyone and not just to me. Thank you for joining this call. I will quickly scan through actions that are shared, which were mindful bite, box breathing, curiosity, exploring 5 senses. I love the diversity of this. And then idea for action, putting post-it around the flat to remember to be aware. I do that often as well. No, maybe I should add that one to the list. Cool. And then the first bite again, roots and universe, looking at the leaf. Oh, I love that one. It's so poetic. And then roots and universe, hugging myself like a little girl in the wonderful photo. I love that one as well. Yeah, self-compassion will be our webinar topic in April, because it's 4th pillar, so in April. So stay tuned for other webinars. We will get to self-hugs as well. We're just going one step at a time. And then muscle and senses, we are kind of have as the last shared. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Sorry for stretching it a bit over time. I thought it was a bit ambitious to, to squeeze this into an hour. Looking forward to see you in other virtual spaces. I will kill the recording now. I will stay for another 5 minutes just in case there's still some questions in chat. But from the point of content and from the point of everything we wanted to cover for today,